Hello everybody and welcome to our end-to-end IP workflow webinar. We are so excited to bring this webinar to you. My name is Faraz Ahmed and I work at Amitrace, and we have been wanting to bring this webinar, or I personally have been wanting to bring this webinar for practically the last 2 years. Ever since I saw NDI, I could see the potential, but we needed an end-to-end IP NDI based workflow, and we just didn't have it quite yet. And now we do. In the last month, a lot of things have changed, and now we have native end-to-end IP NDI workflows. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now, when we're talking about IP workflows, what do we mean? IP basically means that we're moving video around, or we're moving things around, data around, over our network, right? So your IP telephone, your IP security cameras, your internet, it's an IP protocol. There's also video protocols that we can move video across the IP network. So for example, when we're moving our stream, when we're doing our stream, we're streaming to YouTube or Facebook or Ustream, whatever stream provider we're doing, we're using an IP protocol. We're using our IP network. So that's kind of our output. So we stream an IP, we often record as a file and then go to Premiere. That's also an IP workflow right there, right? Because we're making a file and then taking that into Premiere or whatever NLE you want to. So on the output side of things, we've been working in an IP world for a long time. For several years, if not over a decade. We've been recording files, we've been streaming. Not a huge deal. So what's the next step there? The next step, of course, is that control room. So that's where your switcher is, your graphics, your playback, your recording, your monitors, all that stuff in the control room where you produce your production. And often the TriCaster for our clients is the hub of that. Now, until recently, we've been just using SDI, right? SDI has been around for 20 years. It's awesome. It gets our video from point A to point B, and it works every single time. SDI is a very reliable way to move your video around. However, the disadvantage of SDI is it's a point-to-point connection, right? It's not that I can connect a camera to my switcher and then access that anywhere else I want to. I have to connect another cable to whatever device I want to access that camera from. So NDI really changes that, and NewTek really did that about 2 years ago when they announced the NDI protocol. NDI is an IP protocol to encode and move your video around in software. And so it's a royalty-free protocol that a lot of manufacturers have adopted now. Your VizRT, your Panasonic, your Chiron Hugo, your JVC, LiveView, Livestream, vMix. All these folks have gone, this is really cool, and they've adopted this NDI protocol. And this protocol compresses your video down and moves it across your network at very low latency at very high quality. So it allows us to do a lot of flexible things with our productions, basically moving our video across the network. And TriCasters have had this for a long time, and we've been starting to implement that in our control rooms. So our control rooms, instead of looking like this, which is an SDI-based workflow, right, point to point, you've got your switcher going to your machine or camera going, everything's point to point. We've gone to an NDI-based workflow here. So our NDI-based workflow, everything's centralized. Everything's going to one switch or whatever switches you might have. It's really actually decentralized. And we can now access that anywhere across our network. So it gives us a lot of power to basically be able to access a playback machine anywhere we want to. Anywhere that we're on the network, we can access that playback machine or that graphics machine. So a lot of flexibility there. And with this NDI protocol, what made it so special is that it was aware that SDI is still really important. No one really went immediately 100% to NDI. SDI was still there, and the products that supported NDI were SDI based. So you still had SDI support. You could still work in the SDI world and bring in NDI as you needed to. Great. That's awesome. So then NewTek introduced the TC1 this year at NAB, and it kind of changed the game, right? This is the TriCaster we've been waiting for. This has 4K, it's 16 inputs, and it's natively NDI. So let's check out this quick video. So now we have the TC1, right? It can bring 16 inputs of NDI. It still has SDI support, but it's a natively NDI-based switcher. So we can bring in all these IP sources. So now that control room aspect of our workflow has been really taken care of. So output's good, control room's good. The next thing that we need to worry about is those cameras. How do we bring those cameras in an IP, natively IP workflow, an NDI-based workflow there? So this is kind of what we're looking at, right? We've got our output, we've got our control room. Now we need native-based NDI IP cameras. And this has really changed the game now based on these new cameras that have been released this month. So the most exciting camera, of course, is the NewTek PTZ camera. And we have that right here in front of us here. I'm going to show you this camera a little bit more in detail. But this is the NewTek PTZ camera released from NewTek, and it's natively NDI. So we can plug this into our network, and it can go right into a TriCaster, or for that matter, a vMix or a Wirecast, anything that supports NDI. So that's what we're really, really excited about. We're going to take a closer look at that camera in a minute. Panasonic has also announced support for their existing PTZ camera line, like the AW130, will natively support NDI with a firmware upgrade. And that firmware upgrade is going to be released this fall. So we're also very excited about that. And then another great product that NewTek has released is the Connect Spark. That's at the bottom corner there. And this is the Connect Spark right here. It's basically a device that we can plug in our HDMI or SDI camera, and then it natively converts it to NDI via Wi-Fi, through our fun antennas, or on our Ethernet connection right here. So more flexibility, because at the camera site we can now convert natively to NDI. So if you want to use cameras that you invested $5, $10, $15,000 into, or how much ever, you can still work in that workflow, in that NDI workflow. So I've talked to you about all this stuff. Now let's check it out, right? Let's get onto our interface and kind of see what we can do with NDI here. So real quick, we're going to go to my camera here. I'm just going to show you my NDI workflow. So before I can even show you my camera, let me show you my interface. Go ahead and Philip, launch my interface. So in this interface, I've got my NDI camera hooked up behind me. And so I'm going to go ahead and connect it for you. I'm just going to go to input 1 right here and show you my NDI PTZ camera. And there it is. And I'm going to bring this camera up full screen so you guys can take a look at it. So there's my NDI PTZ camera right there. And in this setup that I've got, let me actually move around so you can see it. This is our TC1 setup here. We've got 3 multi-viewers across here. So I've got multi-viewer 1, multi-viewer 2, and then my interface in the middle. And then this is all coming through my PTZ right here. And of course, I can control it using this camera right here. I can kind of move around and control it. So this is all being accessible through my NewTek PTZ camera. Now I have another little camera. Let me turn her around here so you guys can see it. Right there. And I can zoom in. Oops, gotta get that right. So there's my NewTek PTZ camera right there. And I can work with that. Now if I want to show you the back of this, I can of course show you the back of the camera right here. And you know what I'm going to do actually? Well, I can just do it like that, can't I? Let me just zoom right in here. I should have made this a preset, but I did not. So that's the back of that camera right there. So your standard connections are pretty easy. You've got your power right here. You've got your audio input. You've got your VISCA control, RS-232 and 422. You've got your HDMI out. You've got your 3G SDI out. So all those controls are available right through here. But this is the exciting port right here, that NDI HX port. That port allows us to move our video across natively in the IP network. And that gives us video, audio, control, tally, and power if you have a PoE switch. So everything you need is going to come over that one little cable right there. And you're going to be ready to go. And this camera right now that you're looking at, this camera right here that's kind of facing us, this camera is being controlled via NDI, and the video is coming through NDI. And you can look at my interface right now and see that it's all coming through NDI here. So again, on input 1, I've got my local inputs here, and then I've got my NDI PTZ channel 1 right here. And that's what's coming through. So that's my native NDI camera. And let me go ahead and move that camera back out. I should have made some presets. I apologize, guys. But there it is. There's my setup. And you can see everything kind of doing with this NDI camera. And this is my other extra camera right here. Now, that's what we're really, really excited about, is that native NDI camera that we've got going on. But looking at our interface now, we're going to go back onto our interface here. You can see that I've got 16 native NDI inputs coming in. So all these inputs can be natively NDI. So I've got sources coming in from other TriCasters, other input modules. I have sources coming back from Premiere. These are all NDI-based products. I also have video coming in and graphics coming in all over my IP protocol. Right now, nothing is actually connected to my back of my TC1 via SDI. And to prove that, I'm going to show you another NDI device here. So, real quick, I've got my NDI camera right here, my iPhone, and I'm going to launch the NDI app. And I'm just going to turn that on. And I'm going to go back onto my interface here and go to one of my inputs and say, hey, let me use my iPhone. And here's my iPhone now coming in as a native NDI camera. So I'm going to put this on program here so you guys can see that. And this is my iPhone coming in as a native NDI camera. So I'm going to actually go back here. Here's Philip. And we're going to go back here. And I'm going to show you the back of my TriCaster. And I'm going to basically bring in, let me turn on the light here real quick. There we go. All right, so you can see under my inputs here, nothing is coming in. All 4 inputs are free. I've got outputs going out, but none of the inputs are going out there. All coming in via NDI. So all my video is coming through this one NDI connection here. Again, all my inputs are free. And if I go back here, you can take another look at my interface. Philip, you can pull up my interface now. I have to look at my crappy camera work here. All right, so there is all these inputs that you've been seeing have been coming natively via NDI. Now, that was another really cool example of NDI, right? We have an NDI-based iPhone camera, and we've seen our PTZ camera. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is the Connect Spark. The Connect Spark here, Philip's got me showing it right here. This is basically going to allow you to bring your video in from HDMI or SDI right here. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show this. It's going to be easier with my little iPhone camera here. This iPhone camera is just a lifesaver. Philip, can I put that up? All right. Does that work, guys? Kind of show you that camera real quick. Okay, so I've got my HDMI in, my loop through, my input, my audio out, USB, and then power. And then this is my Ethernet connection right here. And then on the back, I've got USB controls as well as the antennas for the Spark. Another nice feature is an SD card, mini SD card, so you can actually record natively on this device. So there's HDMI and SDI versions of this device right here. Pretty cool stuff. All right. So we've seen several ways of bringing NDI into our workflow now, right? Through the native camera, Panasonic is releasing a firmware upgrade. We've got this iPhone device that we've seen before that's awesome. And we've got our Spark now. So this is an end-to-end IP workflow because you can bring your video in, you can do your switch, do your graphics, and then stream it, distribute it, record it, whatever you need to, all through that end-to-end IP workflow with NDI. Now, the next question everyone asks me is latency. This is great for us, this is looking good. How do we, how can we confirm latency with these devices that it is a low enough latency for us here? So, what I've done is along with NDI, we're going to hook up SDI here in a second. So let's go back to our interface. Philip, you've got that pulled up. Perfect. All right. So can you zoom into this area here, Philip, by any chance? All right. Perfect. And I'm going to kind of move this over a little bit so you can see. This is connected via NDI. NDI PTZ1. No doubt about it, right? Here it is. We're looking at it. Now, I'm going to go back to the back of the camera. I'm going to get my iPhone handy again. You can tell that I really love this iPhone app. It makes showing things a lot easier. I'm going to go back to my TC1 back here. Give me a second. Say hi, Philip. All right. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to turn on the light. Can I get my light on? Oh, there it is. All right. There's my light. I'm going to take my SDI cable right here, and I'm going to plug that in. All right, so now I have SDI going in there as well. All right. So now I'm going to go turn off that camera so my battery doesn't die here, y'all. All right, so I'm going to plug in my camera. So this is my NDI camera right here. We've already proved that. I'm going to now grab my input number 7, or 8 here actually, and I'm going to go ahead and go to input 1 here. That's where I plugged it in. All right, so you can see my talk show is coming in, my PTZ1 camera is coming in right there, and I'm going to relabel it from talk show to the SDI PTZ camera. So that same camera now, I'm going to bring in my iPhone here again. That same camera, that camera right there, is coming in through NDI and SDI. I'm going to go back here and show that to you real quick. So it's probably upside down, but here's SDI and here is NDI. So they're both coming through. And I have both sources coming through here. You're going to go back to the interface here, Philip. Perfect. One is coming through NDI, one's coming through SDI. So this is my SDI, this is my NDI. And I'm going to go to my ME that I've set up here real quick. And you can see that this side is the NDI one. This is input 1 right here. That's the NDI side. And this is the SDI side. And you can kind of see in the interface how we've got that set up. And looking over here, you can see we're right on sync. We've done a demo of this before when I was waving my hand. And people were saying, you know, that's great for us, but can we see some time code? Can we see exactly what that delay looks like? More than just, you know, you moving your hands and things like that. You can see right now it's right on sync. You can't see it. All right, so I said, sure. I don't have a device to show time code really easily right now, so I'm just going to be a little bit quick here, and I'm going to go to my workspace, and I'm going to load up my clock over here. All right, and I'm going to take my PTZ1 camera and just zoom right in. Now, you know, it can control your camera, but you still have to have a good operator that knows what they're doing. All right, so right there you can see the NDI and the SDI, and they look right on point, right? They look like they're right in sync. Now, it's hard. My eyes can't focus on both sides of those screen at the same time. So what I'm going to do real quick is just do a grab here of my camera here. So we're at 20, 12, 14, 5, and I'm just going to do a grab here, 6 by the time I hit grab. And now I'm going to go to DDR1 here and take a look at the frame that I grabbed. And you can see 24 and 23 right here. They are at the same point. So we've got a 1 frame, but you can even see the 23 is trying to change to a 24 here. So it's less than 1 frame of delay. It's less than 1 frame delay because you can literally see on this screen that that 3 is not a clear 3. It's actually trying to change to a 4. So we're under 1 frame of delay coming between NDI and SDI, and this is happening live in front of us for you as a demo. So that screen to me tells me everything. A native end-to-end IP workflow with under 1 frame of delay running just over a standard gigabit network. We are incredibly excited about this because it now creates that workflow that you're seeing on your screen right there. You have your cameras, your control room, and your output, natively NDI, and your devices are supporting this. So at this point, people say, cool, so what? And the so what is NDI allows technology to take the back seat and allows storytelling to drive your production. What this essentially allows you to do is you can now always get the shot that you want from whatever angle you want, and you can easily kind of create these environments. You can now get a shot from backstage, you can get a shot from the audience, you can get a shot from the green room. Your program is available in all those places, and you can create differentiated content for all these places. Just because NDI opens up that whole world of flexibility. You want to add a camera to your lobby real quick for a press conference, that's possible as long as you have a network drop there. That infrastructure that's already there that you're using for your internet and your Wi-Fi and your file move transfers, that's the infrastructure that you can just latch right into. And so that's the true benefit of NDI, is that now storytelling takes the front seat. The other huge advantage of NDI is all these creative workflows that you can create. So for example, typically you have an auditorium, let's say, and you might have a studio. You would create a separate control room for each of those. With NDI, that's no longer necessary. You could have one TC1, and it can access everything on your network, whether those two things are in the same building, on the other sides of the building, or anywhere across your campus for that matter. As long as you're on the same network, you can make it possible. So NDI, I think, is just basically there's workflows that we haven't even thought of yet. And every time customers start using it, they create these new exciting workflows. Just because it's possible, it's easy, it's plug and play. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions about NDI or how NDI works, I'm going to look at my question bank here real quick. Give me a second while I turn around here and take a look at this and see if there are any questions that have come through. Tom wants to know if we want to try HDMI, SDI, and NDI at the same time. Tom, I will try that out for you in just a second. My camera's over there, and I don't have an HDMI monitor near that. But I will hook that up, and we will make that possible here in a few minutes and make that work. Another question that comes up is in terms of Wi-Fi with the Connect Spark. So with Wi-Fi, there's a little bit more latency than with the Ethernet port, but what's exciting is that it always defaults to the Ethernet port. And if you unplug the Ethernet port, it automatically goes back to Wi-Fi. So it might lose signal for a couple of seconds, and then it catches on the Wi-Fi signal and goes right in. And if you plug the Ethernet back in, it'll latch onto that. So it's almost a redundancy built right into these Connect Sparks. Anything else, Philip, coming in right now that we see here? I'm going to give it a few more minutes to see if anyone has any other questions. And then, of course, at this point, I invite you to schedule a demo with us. We've been doing a lot of virtual webinar demos now, and those are really, really effective. So we can work with you one-on-one with your creative NDI workflows, whether that involves the PTZ cameras, the Panasonic cameras, the Sparks, or the TC1. So we're going to wrap up. We're going to stay on the chat just for a few more minutes. Can I use 2 or more switchers on the same network? Yes. NDI is completely decentralized. So right now in our environment, I'm actually using my TC1 right here. Let me see if I can get all my cameras together, guys. All right, so I'm using my TC1 right here, right? So this is one unit right here. Philip is actually doing a lot of the streaming over here on another TriCaster. So he's over here, if I can get this to go. So I'm not very good at this camera. So he's using a TriCaster 460. And then you'll notice right above that, we actually have the NCIO that's also bringing some of these inputs for us. So we have a lot of different sources that we're working with. Also, Philip goes onto the network. I am not good at this camera. If Philip goes onto my interface over here, real quick, Philip, if you don't mind, right? So on my interface, you'll notice that I can access actually a lot of different things. I have my local inputs, so my SDI inputs and such. But then below that, you're going to see all these other NDI sources that are available to me. So in our repair shop, we have all sorts of TriCasters hooked up. So this is actually another TriCaster that's hooked up somewhere in our building over here, as well as the NCIO that I just showed you. Then this is the NDI camera that we're using, Philip's phone. We have a talk show in here. And then as well as another TriCaster that's hooked up. And then an old TriCaster, I think XD 455 or 460 or something, that has just an output coming through. So you can use multiple switchers simultaneously without a problem. What is the input to output delay? So the TC1 is adding a, I believe, a 1 to 2 frame delay, no more than 2 frames. I believe they have that even lower. So input to output delay, we haven't personally done that test, so I'd have to go look in the tech specs and kind of see that exactly what that delay looks like. But what you're looking at in terms of SDI out is what we've been looking at and kind of sending everywhere. I don't have a set number for you, but I do see what you're asking. What else do I have? Oh, the other thing about the multiple switchers on the same network. The TC1, the large control surface, is also network-based, Cat 5, Cat 6 based. So you can actually plug in Ethernet cables to that too as well. So that makes it really flexible because you can plug to, you know, right now I want to control this one. Okay, now I want to control this other TC1. So the TC1 and the control surface don't have to be right next to each other. They can actually be, as long as they're on the same network, they can be far apart. All right. Anything else, guys, that we have for me? All right, I'm going to keep the chat window open, so feel free to ask questions. Like I said, please give us a call or an email if you want to schedule a virtual webinar. It's one-on-one. We find them to be really, really effective because everyone wants to kind of test it and see how their scenario would work. Also, we have our NDI demo studio here, so the best way to prove and see the delay and see how everything works is just come in and check it out. We also, of course, have several of these PTZ1 cameras and Sparks, so if you want to check it out in your environment, let us know, and we'll try to work with you and test that out for you.
Alex would like to know, instead of being switchers, you meant network switches. So.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So you obviously multiple switches. Absolutely, network switches. So in this room alone, we have several network switches. I think Philip's saying 2 network switches. But then the other TriCasters are actually coming in from another network switch. So in just an Arlo environment, we're using 4 or 5 switches. So absolutely, you can have multiple switches. And we've tested in much more robust environments with, a whole school worth of switches. And that's not a problem at all. It's all equal across the network. It's all equal across the network. All right, cool. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Feel free to ask any other questions that you might have. And again, I recommend that you come in for a demo in our studio or as well as schedule a virtual webinar, and we'll get everything answered for you. Thanks again so much for watching. If you've missed the earlier part of the demo, we are going to put this on demand in just a few minutes here, so you'll be able to watch that as well. Again, thank you for watching, and have a great one.